1. To start with, none of my other friends ever liked Alice. None of my partners ever liked her. Everyone else close to me actively disliked and avoided her. I felt this was because she had an abrasive personality and was socially awkward. Alice is autistic, but so am I. A lot of my other friends are neurodivergent too. We met when we were 17 years old. Alice and I were born in the same year, same day but 1 month apart. Since we met, she has never had any friends outside of me. She has had one boyfriend, she lived with him, and their house was always filthy. They had 3 dogs and a cat, and I never liked visiting due to the hair and the smell. We had both been through the best and worst times together over the last decade. She was always an emotionally supportive friend, but also emotionally demanding. There were multiple dramas when we were younger, and we stopped being friends for 6 months because I was in an abusive relationship. A little over 2 years ago, we decided to move in together. We had a very strong friendship. We spent a lot of our time together anyway, and we had sleepovers often. As is expected, there were growing pains when we first moved in together. However, looking back, these were not regular growing pains. It began with Alice rearranging my washing. We were sharing a clothes horse until we bought a second one. She would move my washing around and blamed this on her anxiety. To be clear, her washing wasn't moved, she was creating space or making it more efficient. She just didn't like the way I hung my things out. I hang my washing in a completely normal and ordered manner. Next, she criticized the amount of washing I did. She questioned me on why I needed to do so much washing compared to her. I explained that I worked as a dental nurse and had a pet parrot. Both of those are messy. Our house was organized based on what she wanted. Any suggestion I made was questioned or immediately turned down. She was constantly ready to be defensive. Alice became passive-aggressive about every little thing. She started picking fights about anything I said or did. It didn't matter what it was, she was just looking to fight with me. She accused me of being an aggressive, opinionated person who made her feel intimidated. She said that the reason we were arguing was because she was beginning to unmask around me, and I just couldn't handle that. Really, she never told me she was unmasking, she just started being really abrupt and mean towards me. This is a non-exhaustive list of things that happened. Alice was extremely judgmental of other people and how they chose to live. She saw her opinions and preferences as the correct ones to have and felt everyone else was wrong. She judged that everyone drank or smoked weed. Alice would go on about how she was so much cleaner than me and that she was just raised with such high standards. Except she would leave period blood on the toilet seat, food in the sink, peeled foot skin on my couch. Refused to contribute to yard work because she never went outside in the garden. I explained that it didn't matter. It was part of the property and we had legally agreed to maintain that space. I asked her to help me with yard work multiple times and she would just say, "I'm not doing that. That is not something I do." My dad had just gotten home from living away for 6 months. The night he arrived back, my housemate was away for the weekend. I asked her, "Is it okay if my dad stays the night while you're away?" Because he didn't have a home to go to, and I wanted to catch up since I hadn't seen him in months. She said okay. She took this as me asking for him to stay 1 night. He stayed 2 nights. Both nights she was not home. When she realized he had stayed an extra night, she confronted me and accused me of deliberately miscommunicating or going against my word. Okay then. Then a few months later, she is telling me how her mum has just moved 45 minutes away from where she works. Alice casually says, "Oh, I told my mum she can stay here during the week if she doesn't feel like driving home." So I asked, "What, like every week?" And she said, "Yes, I'm not going to make her drive home if she's tired." I told her if it was a random occasional thing, I don't care. But I don't want her mum living with us half the week. She said, "She would be sleeping in my room anyway, how does it affect you?" Constantly talked over me in public, answering questions people asked me and speaking for me. Treated me like a child. Multiple people close to me asked if she was in love with me. Her own family joked about us being a couple. She became extremely passive-aggressive and was making me feel like the bad guy. She would start arguments about anything and then cry and call me argumentative. Example, when we moved into a 3-bedroom house, she asked what I wanted to do with the 3rd bedroom. I thought it might be a storage room, keep our stuff in there so our house is nice and tidy, I said.
Well, I don't want that. That's a waste of space we're paying extra for.
Okay, we can use it as a spare bedroom then.
No, I don't want that either.
Okay, what do you think we should use it for?
I don't know. I only know what I don't want, that's why I'm asking you.
Okay, I'm just not sure what the right answer is. I don't know what you're wanting me to say.
I just want to talk about it. I'm allowed to ask. That is my boundary.
Ignoring the fact that is not what boundary means. We still never agreed. Any suggestion was the wrong suggestion. The room remained empty most of the time we lived there, until I finally asked if I could have the whole room to myself, and she could have the whole lounge room and sitting room that was attached to it. She admitted that she was jealous of my confidence and ability to be assertive. She felt it was my fault she couldn't be assertive or have an opinion. That I stopped her from doing this. She is extremely insecure. I told her I wasn't born this way. I had to work very, very hard to gain confidence. I used to be terrified to leave the house and would become nonverbal. So I felt hurt when she told me I didn't understand or have social anxiety. She told me she didn't trust me with money because I could easily just take her money and run. I'm financially responsible and independent. I've never been late on rent in my life, and I've never run away or stolen anything, ever. This came up because she would send me her half of the rent money, and I would pay rent. She also didn't want to be the one to pay because she didn't want the responsibility. This conversation led to her telling me she doesn't trust me, 7 years of friendship at this point, and probably never would. Awesome. She almost killed my pet fish by switching off his heater and filter during winter. She refused to apologize because she said it was an accident, so she shouldn't have to apologize for that. I explained to her how important it was to not switch the tank and heater off, but she just did not care. This also broke my tank heater and I had to pay for a new one. Her mom visited while I was out, and her pet dog almost killed my pet parrot. He bit him through his cage and ripped feathers out. She only told me after the fact. When I asked that her mom's dog not be allowed in the lounge area where my bird's cage was, she accused me of being controlling. She said since I was allowed to have my boyfriend visit, she should be allowed to have her mom and dog visit. I told her that my boyfriend never bit or tried to kill her, obviously. She could still have them visit, just keep the dog out of that room. She refused. The incident that ended our friendship happened during our second move. In the weeks leading up to the moving, she had been exceedingly rude and controlling. Whenever there is a change, she becomes so selfish. It's like fight or flight kicks in and she gives zero craps about anyone but herself. I accepted this as I understand change is very stressful for anyone, and she struggles even more so with it because she is autistic. So I tried to ignore her comments and let it all go, until the day of the move. It was a very hot day, so everyone was a little bit more tense. The people involved were her mum and her mum's boyfriend, with only a regular-sized car, and unable to do much due to an injury. My mum and stepdad, with a big car and big trailer, my brother, my brother's friend, my 10-year-old sister, myself, and my ex-friend. From the start, she only moved her own belongings. She deliberately avoided moving any of my stuff, and then claimed she didn't want to break anything accidentally, despite most of my things being wrapped and packed in plastic tubs safely. She then expected my family and I to move all of her large belongings with our trailer. This was fine. They were happy to do so, but she didn't actually ask or anything. She just expected it to happen. It got to midday, and she told me she was leaving to go get her hair done, which was going to take hours. At least 3 hours, usually. I told her I really didn't think it was okay for her to go do that right now. I told her that all of her big items still needed to be moved, and that I wasn't going to tell my family to do it when she won't even be there to help. She cancelled her appointment, but was angry at me. Whatever, I keep moving things. We agreed 2 days earlier that we would buy beer for everyone helping us. We discussed the 2 brands of beer we would buy specifically. After she cancelled her hair appointment, she went and bought beer for her mum and her mum's boyfriend only. When she got back, I asked if she had bought beer, and she told me yes, but only for her people. I asked why she would do that, when we had already agreed on buying it together for everyone, and she said,
"Oh, I don't know what beer your parents drink,"
in her fake nice voice. I then said, "Yes, you do. We literally spoke about it yesterday and today. You could also have called." I didn't say this in a mean manner, but I think it was obvious I was annoyed and confused. Her mum then got in my face saying,
"I asked her to get me beer, she's just doing what I told her to."
I just ignored her and kept working. This entire time, her mum is mainly unpacking our kitchen stuff. My ex-friend is sulking and hiding behind her mum. My family and I are all moving things still. We all go back to the old house to get a large shelf. This shelf belongs to me and is heavy and awkward to carry. I had broken up with someone 2 weeks before this move, and he had been kind enough to still come help move this shelf for me. Most of my family didn't even know we had broken up yet. He turned up and was introduced to Alice's family. Then Alice loudly said in front of everyone,
"Yeah, this is Hayley's ex-friend? I'm not sure what is the correct term,"
in her fake nice voice while smiling. Everyone was silent. I looked at her and said, "Seriously?" and then walked off. I was so angry, and I apologized to my ex because that would have been embarrassing for him. I continued to move things. I walk up to our dirty recycling tub, dirty because she would put unrinsed food containers in there, only to find all of my toiletries from the bathroom dumped in it. I asked why my things were in the recycling tub, and Alice told me her mum had put all of it in there. I said, "Why didn't you move it? That tub is so dirty. That is disgusting." And Alice didn't respond. I walked outside to put items in the trailer. I walked back inside to grab more, and suddenly Alice's mom is up in my face and she is yelling at me. She is yelling at me to leave her daughter alone and get over myself, because her daughter hasn't done anything wrong and neither had she. This grown woman is just shouting at me in front of everyone. Everyone is frozen, silent, and confused. I say, "First of all, stop yelling at me. Second, I am not speaking to you. I am speaking to your daughter who is an adult." She then continues yelling at me. I say, "Can you stop yelling and get on with moving? Taylor is standing right there. Stop." Referring to my 10-year-old sister, this woman then turns to my mom and says,
"What? Did you never yell at her as a kid?"
And I snapped at her, "No, she never needed to." I continue to move things while she whined to everyone that she wasn't even yelling and that I am the problem. At the time, I just kept moving because I knew it needed to be done. However, that night when I had a shower and relaxed a little, I realized the situation had triggered me due to past abusive relationships. I felt physically sick. I decided not to stay at home and instead I stayed at my mom's house. That night, I wrote a message to send to Alice. I explained why I was hurt and how her behavior had made me feel. She responded in a defensive and hurtful way, which I expected. But it still really hurt to have a friend of 10 years show that they didn't have my back. She told me that she couldn't control her mom's behavior and that she felt it was necessary to protect her. Protect her from what? I have no idea. She turned everything I said and told me that actually I owed her an apology, and that she couldn't genuinely apologize until I do it first. She clearly didn't care, and when she realized I wasn't going to give in and apologize to her, she tried to smooth things over. Part of this that really bothered me was that Alice had cut her mom off for 3 months because she had yelled and screamed at her publicly. So she absolutely knew this behavior was hurtful and unnecessary. When she eventually tried to apologize, more of an "I'm sorry you feel that way," she asked if she could tell her mom about my history with domestic violence, so that she would understand why being yelled at was upsetting for me. I said fine, then quickly said actually no, because any apology following that would be a fake pity apology, and I did not need that. After all this happened, we barely spoke. We lived together for another 6 months and basically divided the house and avoided each other. It was definitely uncomfortable, and at that point, everything she did annoyed me because I resented her. I just ignored her and she ignored me. Unfortunately, we had 2 tickets to go see Taylor Swift together, months after the move, which was ironic because we were never, ever getting back together. Another friend came with us, thankfully. This other friend, May, has multiple chronic health problems just like I do. More specifically, she has POTS, which causes her to faint and not be able to walk long distances. It was very hot the night of the concert, which can make POTS symptoms more severe, so at the beginning the stadium was evacuated due to weather problems and a risk of danger because of the rainstorm. So we got stuck in a 6-story high concrete spiral. The staff kept telling us to walk up the spiral to create space at the bottom for people evacuating. We would be at the top, and they would tell us we could start moving back down, only for us to go a little further down and get yelled at to go back up. Alice and I had been separated from May. Alice and I walked up and down that spiral maybe 3 times total. I suggested we should try to get as close to the ground floor as possible so that May wouldn't have to walk up the spiral. Alice seemed annoyed about this. When the concert was over, we were all in the shuffle as you slowly exit. May was holding on to me and I was holding Alice's back strap. I asked Alice to walk a little bit slower for May to keep up. She immediately became angry and told me to let go of her if we can't keep up. I told her I just didn't want us to be separated again. Whatever. When we get out onto the street, May orders an Uber. We are aware this will take a long time, so we sit on the path to wait. Alice asks why we've stopped and sat down, so I explain how Uber works, as she's never used it before. She kept questioning me on how the driver could know our location. Why can't we just walk further away from the crowds of people so it will be faster? This was literally not possible in this area. Why are we sitting down? Why is this taking so long? I don't know. Maybe because there's 85,000 people trying the exact same thing as us. Her behavior and attitude ruined the end of the night and definitely made May feel bad for being disabled. We all went to bed and carried on as normal the following morning. A few days later, Alice came to me. I think she must have been feeling guilty for her behavior because I never brought this issue up with her. I'll summarize a quote from her.
I was thinking about the other night. I was really angry that day at May for how she was acting. I figured she has legs. Why can't she walk? But I googled her condition and now I understand better.
I was shocked that she would even admit this. The following afternoon, I went to speak to her. I let her know she behaved very rudely and hurt May's feelings, as well as mine. Initially, she said,
You'll need to be more specific. I don't know the behavior you're referring to. Maybe you thought I was being rude, but I wasn't upset with May.
I told her that she literally told me herself that she was annoyed at May.
So she then said, Fine, but that's because you didn't even care that my legs hurt too. And I don't see why you could walk and stand fine that night, but she couldn't. You have the same condition, and you were fine.
This was what really upset me. I told her either she is lying about being angry at me to try to avoid accountability, or she is actually ignorant enough to believe all disabled people must experience life in the exact same way. I pointed out that she is autistic, and so am I. And she knows we don't act the same way. After a few minutes of silence, she started crying and admitted she was lying to avoid the conversation.
I'm trying to avoid the conversation because all you do is attack me.
She always tried to make herself the victim. By attack her, she means bringing up totally valid and mundane questions, issues, house-related concerns. She didn't like if I had these conversations after work as she was tired. If I did it before work, it would ruin her whole day. If I did it without warning, I was ambushing her. If I tried to give her a warning that we needed to talk about something, I was being rude by causing her anxiety until it was time to talk. There was never an acceptable time or method for having necessary conversations. I was so sick of having to walk on eggshells just to communicate with her. I told her straight that she had made me feel guilty and horrible for months, and that I was done worrying about her feelings. I was straightforward with her and told her we just weren't friends anymore. For the last few months of living together, I felt uncomfortable and frustrated. All the little things that I never cared about suddenly annoyed me so much now that we were not friends. As soon as we were finished with our lease and related stuff, we stopped talking altogether. It really sucks to have lost a long-term, close friend who I thought supported me. However, my other close friends made me realize that her behavior was not normal or acceptable in a friendship. 2. I had the worst experience with a roommate in my life. What started as a friendly connection when I first met with this individual suddenly turned when I realized he expected more from me than I was willing to give. They gave me the impression that they were gay and looking for a female roommate by posting their ad in a roommate site that they were LGBTQ community only, and it turned out they thought something more would develop between us. They wanted to spend a lot of time with me and constantly texted me over nothing related to the home. And while I mostly ignored their messages, they weren't deterred by the hint. They were also a major homebody and thought that me going out more than once a week was overindulging, and would age-shame me as much as possible if I didn't give them the attention they wanted. Within the first week, it was apparent that they had a substance abuse and drinking problem, and whenever they were intoxicated, I would get messages verbally abusing me over very tiny things between us that were grossly exaggerated to the point of non-realistic. These events would occur 3 more times, with me letting it go, since they would apologize until their last apology was ingenuine. And I chose to interact with them as little as possible afterwards. When they noticed that I wasn't interested in pursuing any friendship, that's when it became threatening and scary. They sent me multiple insults, totaling hundreds of bearding messages, insulting my intelligence and my age again, and how stupid I was to rent a room from another person. Meanwhile, I paid my rent on time, and also lent them money when they needed the help. Grateful, obviously. Once I received those messages, I spent 2 nights at a friend's home to avoid seeing them in that manner, and went home the following morning while they were sleeping with the booze off and anger off. An hour after I arrived, their room had blaring music playing with them singing along in a deafening tone, and was very loud. I wouldn't be surprised if the neighbors on both sides of our unit noticed. When this occurred, I felt very unsafe in my home. I didn't know what they would do since they had started drinking as soon as they got out of bed, and I wanted to start moving out, but not without any safety measures. My friend and I went to the police to have some kind of assistance, and while we waited for them, my roommate continued to send me multiple messages again, telling me that I should have been submissive to them, and I would have had it easy living there. Which made no sense since I had my own space and paid my rent on time while buying my own groceries and keeping the space clean. The police came, but couldn't help without requesting the roommate to open the door. They may have passed out and didn't hear the cops. And then it just became apparent that I couldn't do anything since nothing was under my name for that unit. Later that day, I received more messages from them threatening physical harm against me, and I stayed at my friend's place again with the clothes given to me from my girlfriends, since I didn't pack anything with me that day. They also gave me an extra toothbrush they happened to have, since I brought nothing with me at that point. A few days later, my friends and I just went in and gathered anything I could take with me in hand, while my then roommate continued their crazy binge of pot and booze while yelling at me and my friends for being in their home, while I gathered my things in a room I already paid the whole month for, but was leaving more than 15 days out of it. I gathered my furniture later that week. The only really positive thing I received from that person was my deposit along with the money I loaned him at the time. Yet he still decided to message me over a month later from another phone number for no good solid reason. Only after this incident that I dug into their background and saw all the restraining orders and motions against them, and will never ever consider a roommate situation without a better background check and proof of a clean police report when this person even had stalking in their history. Always do background checks. 3. My friend Zephyr married Jerica, making me their children's godfather. So if anything were to happen to them, the kids would come to my care. Jerica had 2 teenagers at this point from her previous marriage, Jack and Remy. Remy is the goddaughter in question. Zephyr died from cancer, and Jerica passed a year or so later. At this point, Remy was living on her own and had a boyfriend in which she had a child during the pandemic lockdown. When the child, Sam, was a couple of years old, Remy had a falling out with Sam's father and moved in with her girlfriend, Joan, Shortly after that, Remy started to have a problem with Joan and her family. So Corn, my partner, and I decided to let Remy and Sam into our home and help her get on her own feet, without relying on anyone else. That's the backstory. Now the preface. Before Remy moved in, Joan contacted us to let us know about some red flags she saw. Remy would get high frequently, even though that is the issue she had with Sam's father. She would yell at her kid for no reason and sometimes even forget to feed Sam. We listened with a grain of salt and figured if those issues arose, we would try to help her out with them. Where did this foreshadow come from? The plan. Remy got a check from her tribe each month for her expenses, but she also had a job running for Uber. So, good on her, doing a job for what I like to call cushion money. Enough money for small expenses like toiletries and unexpected payments and the like. She bought a better modem for our side of the duplex. The other side, Corn's aunt rented with my oldest son. We paid for their internet. Bills were to be split. While Remy was out, Corn and I would watch Sam free of charge. Corn gave up her bedroom for Remy and Sam and set up a corner of the downstairs with curtains to act as her temporary room. Dinner was to be swapped around to person in charge of cooking. The end goal was to have Remy be able to afford a house to buy and live in with Sam, although she liked the idea of me and Corn living with her, with our children. Boy, how the best laid plans falter. Diabetes control. I lost my father to leukemia and diabetes. I also had some impactful people in my life die from it. Even Jerica had a rough time with it. She had to get her leg amputated due to it. So one of the things that Corn and I helped her with was remembering about her injections and pills. Also trying to regulate her sugar intake. Oh boy, is sugar a commanding mistress. The sweet stuff can be very addicting. This started out fine. However, she kept making large bunches of sweets like cookies and cupcakes. She would give each person in the house one, even her son, and then eat the rest herself in one go. This would be half a dozen sweets she would consume at once. Then she would complain that she feels sick. She has one of those devices implanted on her arm that would trigger an alarm on her phone when her blood sugar would get too high or low. Sometimes she gets too tired or high to listen to this alarm and just not get her insulin. She kept a bag of cookies in her car for when she needs sugar on the road, which turns out to be very frequent, according to her. One time she came home feeling dizzy from low sugar, having run out of cookies. She charged into the kitchen, grabbed a cupcake, ate it, and laid down. This is all fine and good, except the cupcake was for Corn and my youngest daughter. It was from a bunch of cupcakes that we bought for her birthday a couple of days prior, and there was one left. And we were saving it for our daughter. I confronted her about this while she was laying on the floor, and she told me she didn't eat a cupcake. I just saw you eat it, and the wrapper was on the floor next to you. Corn looked up in the camera that we have set up, and she ducked for it, passing up more healthy choices to bring her sugar level up, and was there for everyone. Why would she frantically search for a cupcake that wasn't hers? The following part of the story deals with the possibility of transitioning. However, while we understand there are many ways in which someone can be transgender, and that surgery and medication need not be involved, this situation is somewhat unique. Non-transing transgender. I am for transitioning genders. I am an advocate for mental health and being comfortable inside your body. Proof? Well, Corn had a binder that she gave Remy to reduce her chest size, to look more like a guy's. I had a jockstrap I hadn't used in years, washed and sanitized, mind you, you were all thinking it, that we let her use, not just to look like a bulge, but so she can get used to having something done there while sitting. She was excited for these, but never used them. We kept suggesting that she uses them, but waved it away. Nothing big. But she got some bad news about her health. She had a condition with her plumbing that caused her to have a hysterectomy. But wait, this is perfect. You see, her insurance wouldn't pay for gender-reaffirming surgery, but they will pay for removal due to a life-threatening procedure. One thing though, being diabetic is a concern for any kind of surgery, so the doctors warn her that she will have to keep her blood sugar and cholesterol levels regular. Cue healthy cooking. Keep her healthy. However, note the section above. The night before her pre-surgery checkup, she cooked a whole batch of s'mores. Corn and I warned her about the sugar levels, even our kids were concerned about this. But she yelled at us, "I'm an adult and I'll do what I want." But I thought that you wanted to transition. And like usual, she gave everyone one s'more and ate the rest for herself. Keep in mind, this is a bunch of marshmallows and chocolate she just inhaled. Pure sugar. Sure enough, the next day after her appointment, she charged into the house in tears. After Sam and I tried to console her, keep in mind, Sam is 3, she cried out, "They cancelled my surgery because my cholesterol is too high." While we try to warn you. A while after this, Remy confided in Corn that she might not transition after all because her large chest was bringing in a lot of tips. We support her in whatever she wants to do, but she certainly seemed to be cooling on the notion. The alleged abuse. Trigger warnings, of course. This involves Sam, her 3-year-old son. The plan was that the only thing that I was responsible for was watching her child while Remy was out. There was no agreement that I feed him, teach him, entertain him, or watch him while Remy gets off her rocker. This was her child, not mine. But here we are. She was treating me like I was his father. She would yell at me that his food wasn't made, lecture me about taking him out to play or sitting down with him to teach him. Read with him. Count with him. Mind you, she was there. She was around when she yelled at me about all of this. When it comes to supper, I would cook most of the time. If it took long, I was an awful parent. Parent, not grandfather. I was his papa, not his dada. And then when I was done cooking, it was up to me or one of my kids to set up his high chair and to feed him. What was Remy doing at this point? Making her own food because she doesn't like what I cook to screw off upstairs and watch Avatar on loop yet again. Oh, but when she does feed him, her definition of feeding would be to get in his face and yell, "Eat your food," like a demon. She gets ugly and mean when she yells, and if it's not when he's not eating, it's when he is currently shoving food in his mouth, even while he was chewing. He would shake and cry while she yelled at him. However, she would turn around and say she doesn't want to force him to eat all his food to prevent eating disorders. Oh hey, this is where that foreshadow came from. The worst, though, well, I cannot say here. Let's just say... What I can say is she would push Sam away, saying, "Leave me alone," much like a teenager would do to a clingy baby sibling. But again, it got worse. The wedge. Now this has affected Corn a lot more than it affected me, and I admit that I am also at fault in this as well. However, not in the way you'd think. Keep in mind that Remy has been like my daughter since she was a teenager. I dated both of her parents before at some point in time. I have no interest in her that way. However, I do like spending time with my kids. But spending time with her was to sit in her room while watching the TV we had set up on the wall. Corn started to feel disturbed by this, even though she knew I wouldn't do anything. Corn didn't know Remy's intent. Speaking of which, Remy would constantly say, "I know you wouldn't cheat on Corn randomly and out of context." She would take me out to random dinners and shopping trips. I keep trying to get Corn to come with us, but she refused because she shouldn't overspend the money, which is fair. And I should have said no too, but I rarely get to go out, so I selfishly said sure. Corn's mental state started to deteriorate, so Remy's solution to this was that her, me, and Sam would move out into our own apartment. To this I said no. The end is nigh. Our youngest daughter loves to scare people. Remy is easily scared. I walked into the room and made her jump out of her skin. So our daughter scared Remy, and Remy yelled, "Do that again and I will hit you." Sure enough, Remy got scared again and hit my daughter. Not out of reaction, like the people you see on TikTok punching the screen in terror. No, she hit her out of revenge. We should have kicked her out then, but I had a conversation with Remy about it. However, fast forward a bit. She and my adult son were outside. Remy had some stuff out on the porch and yard when she got a call from Corn's sister to help with a ride. Instead of cleaning her mess, she ordered my son to do it. He cleaned the trash, but not all of her stuff. He's autistic, so he cleaned up what the neighbors would complain about and nothing else. Corin found Remy's stuff still on the porch, the hard way, and confiscated her Pokemon cards until we talked to her about leaving her stuff out. Now, I found out that sometimes your mind will create holes in your memory to release stress. Apparently, my mind did this again because I don't recall that it was me that took the cards. We have video proof that I grabbed it, but I did not remember what I did with it. So Corin and I needed to talk to her about all that has been happening. So the day after the porch incident, I went to her room to get her. Remy was on the phone talking excitedly to her bio-father. She was going on about different events you can go to, mainly Avatar-related, so I waited until she was done on the phone. However, she was on it for hours. Okay, maybe under one, but I texted her twice that we need to talk to her. Finally, she came down and was noticeably angry. We brought up the porch incident, and she complained that she told Dan to do it. I yelled at her, "He's not your son to command." Corin mentioned something about changing her attitude, and Remy mentions, "Well, I'm moving out at the end of the month anyway, so you guys don't have to worry." Corin tells her that she can get out now, albeit laced with more colorful metaphors, and flips an entire dresser over. Not at Remy. Like she is now telling people, Remy got her stuff and drives off, with her truck door wide open. The aftermath. So it turns out that she planned to move back into her bio-father's at the start of the month. Now she had planned on taking me and my oldest daughter to the Pride Fair. But it seemed that she was planning on leaving us there. I don't know. It seems that Remy saw the writing on the wall and decided to get out of Dodge. Though she was the one writing on the wall, Corin cleared out and cleaned Remy's old room and replaced her bed into the room that night. Everyone's mood and mental well-being has improved since then, so the reason why I'm sure she was trying to get me to break up with Corin, Remy had been sexting with Corin's sister's fiancé. We found their text messages and 2 messages that made me raise my eyebrows. I wish we could have done things while I was there, talking about them too, and this is our little secret. So I wouldn't do anything to cheat on Corin, but Remy was willing to be a homewrecker. Almost forgot something important. At the end of the wedge section, one time I was playing a game on my computer with my headphones on. From behind me I hear a cough. I turned around and Remy was standing at the front door with Sam. She gave me a condescending shrug, so I gave her one back. She yells, "I've been calling you for a while now. Just because Sam's teacher left doesn't mean I'm done Ubering." I looked at her and said, "So?" Apparently it was my duty to continue watching Sam without her discussing with me that she wanted to continue her Uber. Spoilers. She just sat out in her van for hours. Another time I was to parent Sam is when it was almost time to get my youngest from her bus stop. Remy came home with Sam and dumped him in front of me, and said something along the lines of, "He's yours now," and went upstairs to get ready to Uber. I couldn't get Sam ready to walk to the bus stop in time. It was then that Corin got home too and asked why I haven't left yet. I pointed at Sam and she said, "I can watch him. I am so sore." So I left to get my daughter, the higher priority. Apparently, according to Corin, Remy came downstairs and saw that I wasn't there and yelled, "Where's Railuge?" I told him to watch Sam. Corin told her she sent me to get my daughter. Four. We've lived together for about 2 years now. The first year she was spectacular, cleaned and helped out. Last year or so, she has been a nightmare, but the summer months, the worst. She would leave heaps of dishes, and at first I cleaned them alongside mine, and sometimes she'd clean hers, and mine as well. We picked up each other's slack perfectly. Mild fruit flies last summer, we got over it quick. Around that time, we also established what cabinets belonged to who, what dishes are communal, etc. So, she knows very well what she can and can't use. When she stopped doing any dishes at all, this summer, we've had a visible fruit fly infestation in the sink. In the trash, they migrated to the bathroom and the shower area, sink, etc. I kept doing the dishes to try and keep up, spray, bleach, set sticky traps, bought an electric fly swatter. I managed to clear it up, but notified her of the problem and asked her to be more on top of trash and dishes because of it. The next pile-up, I left the dishes in the sink to see if she'd take care of it. It took her 6 weeks to clean any of her own dishes. I separated and cleaned mine, and would leave hers behind. It got to the point where I dug up a black planter box from storage and put it elsewhere in the kitchen, and dump her dishes into it and spray them with bleach occasionally. Instead of washing her own dead, maggot-filled containers in her dish pile, she started using my dishes. As for the infested trash, I was taking it out religiously, every few days, even though I specifically requested that due to the flies, to not put rotting or open food in the trash. She would fill it to the brim and keep pushing down instead of taking it out. I had to start pulling the bag over the sides longer, so that when the trash was full, in the way that makes her push it down and break the bag, it was only actually half full. So I was able to take it out without any rips or spills. I finally snapped about the dishes and removed all of my common area dishes she was using instead of cleaning her own. Every pot, pan, bowl, etc. is now in a box under my bed. The only dishes left in the kitchen are in my specific cabinet, which we've established. She has 4 cabinets to herself, and is mostly Tupperware. I left 1 bowl on the dry rack on Monday, my cat's water bowl. I came home today and it's in the sink. Spaghetti stained along with something crusty on a piece of my Tupperware also in the sink, that I've been scrubbing down daily due to flies. Trash is full and buzzing at this point. I take my bags down to the trash. We live in an apartment daily when I leave for work, and she has 4 garbage bags sitting on our patio. I've also had issues with bills with her, meaning she will forget months at a time to pay utilities, and even lied to me the other day with a work giveaway to get me to send her PDFs of our bills to see if they were actually as expensive as I asked from her. Our utilities for the month of July were $240, and I only asked her for $50 because that was the agreement we made when she moved in. There have been months where her rent check is bounced, and she did not notice at all until I mentioned it. There are times I Venmo request her for things I've paid for that she has ignored for weeks. She is constantly going out, drinking, and bringing a steady stream of men home several days a week. Different guys, and I legitimately do not know what to do. I'm tired. I'm overwhelmed. I don't like getting up in the middle of the night in my underwear to pee and there's some random dude in the hallway. I don't understand this at all. Her parents condone and encourage this behavior and the drinking and the guys. She has mentioned over a year ago that she could stay with her parents, but she wanted a real responsibility and wanted to live in an apartment. I live here. This is my home, not a bachelor pad. The fridge smells terrible from old food, and I'm tired of single-handedly deep cleaning that myself too. What the hell do I do? Her name is on the lease too, but I've been here longer. Not sure if that means anything at all. I am not confrontational, and struggle to approach her with just how angry I am. Every request and conversation we've had has been totally normal, and she seems so understanding. Then she turns around and trashes everything. I want to ask her to leave, but I have no idea how without her finding some way to retaliate. I've been in a committed relationship for 3 years, and I want my boyfriend to move in here, but he doesn't want to clean up after her either, and keeps urging me to talk to her, but I have no idea what to say that I haven't already said, other than move out. I'm just losing it. Any advice, ideas, similar experiences out there? Hellfreezer's note. Well, your best option might be to see when your lease ends and get a place with your boyfriend. It might be better if you have a place you can pick that's both of yours instead of him moving into yours or vice versa. As far as the bill situation goes, I would possibly look into getting her to set up an automatic payment every month for the total of what she would usually owe you. And just to avoid any conflict, so she doesn't try any funny business, as soon as you do pay a bill every month, send her a copy of it. Just email it to her, or however, put it in a shared drive or something. Just to make sure that you know that she has reference for the bills that have been paid, and there's no excuses on her part. However, all that pales in comparison to the fly issue. I remember one summer I had a very bad problem with flies, and like you, I was cleaning, I was scrubbing, I couldn't find the source. I thought I'd found the source, but there was nothing obvious that could be an issue, and so much food got ruined by the little poopers getting into it, like loaves of bread and things that I would buy. No matter how well I thought I'd wrapped them, they'd get into it. Until one day, at my wit's end, I went digging around and I found in the cupboard where I store the garden equipment. What had happened is there was a bag of garbage. It was the day before the trash was due to be emptied. It was full. It was taken out ready to be emptied. And I thought, oh, I'll just put that in here out the way right now so I don't have to look at it, because who wants to look at garbage? And I'll throw it out tomorrow once the trash is emptied. And I forgot about it for such a long time. Then when I tracked it down, I realized, yep, this is it. This is the cause of the problem. And yeah, that fixed it very quickly afterwards. The issue was resolved. And that's one garbage bag. So I certainly know how frustrating it can be. It must be even worse for you with all the trash that she's leaving around. I might have a look at the tenancy agreement, if I were you, and see if there's any stipulation about keeping the house clean. Just basic hygiene, you know, not allowing flies to run. I mean, we all put off vacuuming for a day or two, but it does eventually get done. But really, in the long run, it might be better for you and your partner if you just get out of there and leave the fly queen to the mess. Five. Okay, to sum this up, I ended up moving in with this older male friend I've known for a while. At first, he seemed okay. He did lie about how clean his house is and his living habits. I'm a 26-year-old woman. He is a 39-year-old man. I swear I'm the only one who cleans. He gets upset if I don't pick up after him, but it has gotten worse. Lately he has been hitting on me, and it's not in a normal way. He parties a lot, and when he does, he has to sit outside my bedroom on his car and keeps looking in my room. That's how it started. Then it turned to him just walking in my room no matter what. No knocking. He even brings his weird drunk friends in. Or he brags about me while in the other next room, and gets closer and closer to my door so I hear him. I noticed whenever I come out of my room to use the bathroom in the morning, he comes right out too, and stands near the bathroom. He comes in my room while I'm gone, and I've noticed he has gone through my things. One day, he noticed my Alexa was on, and he went out of his way to explain he was in my room looking for something but didn't find it. What? Then he jokes with his friends. We argue like a married couple. No. He is just stubborn and refuses to listen. A neighbor had told me he was told not to talk to me because my roommate is very jealous and possessive of me if someone brings me up. Including if I'm having a conversation with his friend, he will talk over us the whole time. He will say my name over and over. I keep saying, hold on. He just won't. If I am in my room sometimes, I can see him standing on the other side of the house looking my way. I notice that my door that I always close and put something heavy in front of is always open in the morning. My animals can't move it, and it's always just open enough like someone tried to close it. Weird. Mind you, my door has a peephole? Why? Okay, here's the worst part. He turned the hot water off because it was leaking a little. He didn't ask. He knew I had to shower, but he knew he had the whole weekend off. I made a point to tell him I am uncomfortable showering when he is home. It's a PTSD thing. He goes off about not being a creep, and I try to explain it's not about that. He just gets louder and more passive-aggressive about it. Like, stop. So, I asked when he was gone if he could show me how to turn it on. So every day he left before I got up, and then came home and never left. He told me that he has a moisture problem in the bathroom, and that it needs vented, so I was like, okay, fine. The door to the outside on the bathroom is great, and he was very mad that I didn't open the door to his bedroom to vent it out instead, because outside doesn't do enough. But while I shower, he sits on his bed outside the door. He refuses to let me shower unless he is home. So today I asked if I could shower when he was busy. He told me he had plans and the water got fixed today. Suddenly he has no plans and he is bugging me hard to take a shower. He has told me, "I guess I'll awkwardly just sit in my living room. I don't know, it's so weird you're like that. I'm not creepy. It's getting annoying." So today he said, "Alright, I'll be back in an hour. You can shower." So I waited like 5 minutes, then left my room and started getting ready. I got distracted, but about 3 minutes later my roommate comes back in the door, being extremely quiet, and he was supposed to see me? Like, not in the shower. I'm starting to feel unsafe. He stands in my way, so I have to bump him. He has made many gestures like punching and slapping me in the face. I told him I don't like it, and he was weird about it, and kept doing it, and then was like, "What, you don't want me to touch you?" Then touched my face. And I pulled away and he kept putting his hand on my face. I told him I do not like that, don't do it. And he laughed and smiled hard, and then I backed away into my room and he followed me. I feel so uncomfortable. I feel like he is watching me, and how did he know I left my room just long enough to maybe get in the shower for him to sneak in? He has to always announce and be loud when he's outside my room. If I don't reply to him, he gets mad, and then talks crap about me to his friends. I feel like I'm living with a vindictive creep. He never showers and is just gross. He won't take the hint and has no boundaries. Help? Edit. Coincidence or not, finally got back on my Facebook for the day, and the first post is about Bianca Devons. The woman who was killed by her protector, her male best friend, because he was so in love with her, and she didn't feel that way, and he lost his mind. Oof. Hellfreezer's note. You need to get out of there as soon as possible. If you have a friend you can stay with temporarily, screw the lease or whatever it is. This man's behavior seems to be escalating. He is a danger to you. If there's a way you could look into his history, if you could look him up, that might be worth doing as well. Obviously be discreet about it. You don't want to find him to find out you've done that. I hope you've got friends or family nearby you can stay with for a little while. Until you're able to make that happen, I would suggest you go on Amazon, look up those little locks you can put on the inside of your door. You basically you put it in where the handle is, and then you just kind of screw it in place. It's a temporary thing. It's like a travel lock or something it's called. I recommend everybody get those if you're in some sort of flatting situation. They're non-destructive. You take them with you when you go, and there's no reason he should know you have it, unless he's trying to open your room door, in which case that's another discussion and all the more reason to run. So all I can say is please leave, for your own sake, for your own safety. Please leave. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Bad Roommates, episode 31. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. If you'd like to get early access to these videos, then that's easy to do. You can pick the right tier on my Patreon. There's one, I can't remember which one, there's 3 tiers. One of them is the one that gives you early access. And or you can just pay what you like on Patreon. If it's just early access you want, the Patreon thing is just pay what you feel. And memberships are tiered with different benefits at each level. So, a couple of options there for you if you'd like to take a look. You'll also find a link to my merchandise store in the description, as well as my Discord server if you'd like to join us over there. Okay, not think we've any other business today, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question comes via that Discord server from Fuzzy McBear. Who is your favourite Morticia Addams? To me, it is the original Carolyn Jones. followed by Angelica Houston. I agree with Carolyn Jones. She is definitely my favorite Morticia. However, my favorite Gomez is by far Royal Julia. I don't think that's a controversial answer to give. Certainly he and John Aston? Yes, it's Aston. Give very different performances, and I like that, but I think they both also get to the core of the character. Louis Guzman from the show Wednesday, he is probably the most physically faithful of all the Gomez's we've had. He certainly looks the most like the original Charles Addams character. I don't think his performance is quite... It doesn't quite gel with my expectations from Gomez, but he is the most physically faithful. And I've forgotten about Tim Curry. And Oscar Isaac was in the Addams Family? When? Okay, looking it up, it looks like he played Gomez in the 2019 animated film, which I haven't actually seen, but who else was in it? Charlize Theron, Chloe Grace Moretz, Finn Wolfhard. That's a hell of a name, isn't it? I mean, it's just... You've got a maiden life if your name's Finn Wolfhard. Nick Kroll, Snoop Dogg, Bette Midler. Well, that's just a star-studded cast, none of whom you can see their face. Why don't you let me know what your answers are in a comment below. And before we go, let's take a look at the answer of the day from a previous video. And this was about mixing media in your entertainment. And it comes from Bad Roommates, episode 30. And today's answer comes from M. Lee. I agree with you. When I like a form of media, give me all the adaptations. Sadly, with that, so many things just get lost in translation, and I end up thinking they should have just left well enough alone. Thank you very much for your answer, M. Lee. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.